The night before I was supposed to board the biggest flight of my life, I sat on my bed in our quiet suburban house, suitcase zipped and passport laid neatly on the desk. I had spent years working toward this moment, late nights studying, weekends juggling jobs, and every ounce of energy funneled into one dream: my new position overseas. It wasn't just a job. It was freedom, a chance to finally step into the life I'd built for myself. But when I woke up the next morning, my heart dropped into my stomach. My passport was gone. I tore through the desk drawer, the nightstand, even the trash can, my pulse thundering, and then I saw it on the floor by the door, shredded into ribbons of paper, the cover torn clean in half. My chest went hollow. Standing there in the doorway, scissors still in her hand, was my sister, Melissa. She leaned against the frame with that smug grin she'd perfected since we were kids. "Roaches don't deserve wings," she said. Her voice was calm, almost sweet, like she was doing me a favor by crushing me. I couldn't breathe. Years of work, of sacrifice, destroyed in a single night. When my parents walked in and I pointed at the shredded pieces, Melissa just shrugged. And they, the people I thought might finally defend me, sighed and said, "Don't be dramatic. You can always get another passport." In that moment, something inside me broke. Or maybe it hardened. Because Melissa thought she'd clipped my wings forever. But what she didn't know was that I had no intention of staying grounded. My name is Jessica Morgan. I'm 26 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my sister Melissa has treated my life like it was hers to ruin. We grew up in a modest 2-story house in Cincinnati. My dad worked long hours as an insurance adjuster, and my mom stayed home, always making sure dinner was on the table. On the outside, we looked like a perfectly normal family. But inside those walls, the story was different. Melissa was the golden child. She was loud, pretty, charming, the kind of girl who could break a rule, flash a smile, and somehow get away with it. If she got a B in school, Mom clapped like she'd won an Olympic medal. If she stormed off mid-dinner, Dad would laugh it off and say, "That's just Melissa being Melissa." Me? I was the quiet one. I loved books, I loved planning, I loved dreaming about what could be beyond the small bubble we lived in. I didn't want to settle. I wanted more. I studied hard, worked part-time at the library, saved every penny I could. When I told my parents I dreamed of working abroad, of seeing the world, they chuckled like it was some silly fantasy. Melissa never missed a chance to remind me of my place. "You're not cut out for that kind of life, Jess. You'd fall apart the minute you got on a plane." Her words stung, but I kept going. Because deep down, I knew my dreams weren't for her to decide. I applied to programs overseas, sent out resumes, and worked until my hands ached. When I finally got the acceptance letter from a major international firm in London, I cried right there on my kitchen floor. I thought maybe, just maybe, my family would finally look at me differently. But I should have known better. Melissa didn't see my achievement as a victory. She saw it as an insult, a reminder that I was leaving her behind. And from that moment on, every smile she gave me felt like it was hiding a knife. From the moment I announced I was moving to London, the air in our house shifted. Melissa laughed at first, a sharp, mocking laugh that cut right through me. "London? Please. You'll last a week before you're crying to come home." My parents didn't correct her. They just exchanged glances, like maybe they agreed but didn't want to say it out loud. At first, I brushed it off as her usual bitterness. But then the little things started. She'd accidentally spill coffee on my printed resume or misplace important mail that had my name on it. Once, she borrowed my laptop charger and didn't return it until the morning of a big virtual interview. When I confronted her, she smiled sweetly and said, "Wow, Jess, maybe you should plan better." The closer my departure date came, the more blatant she became. She teased me about the outfits I bought for work, rolling her eyes and saying, "You'll never fit in with them. They'll eat you alive." If I practiced my presentation skills out loud, she'd mock my tone, mimicking me until my face burned with embarrassment. The part that stung most was my parents' silence. I'd look at my mom, hoping she'd at least tell Melissa to stop, but all I got was a weary sigh. My dad would mumble, "Don't let her get to you," as if it was my responsibility to absorb the cruelty and move on. One evening, I came home to find Melissa flipping through my travel guides, pretending to gag. "Wow, Paris, London, Singapore. Do you just pick cities from a postcard rack? You're not going to belong in any of them." That was when I realized it wasn't just teasing anymore. It was something darker. Every day I inched closer to leaving, her smirk grew sharper, her comments crueler. It was like she couldn't stand the thought of me stepping into a world bigger than hers. I remember lying awake at night, my passport tucked safely in the top drawer of my desk, my suitcase half packed. I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder, would she really try to stop me? I wanted to believe she wouldn't, that she'd settle for words, for petty little sabotage. But deep down, my gut told me the truth. Melissa wasn't going to let me fly without trying to break my wings first. And I was right. The night before my flight, everything felt perfect. My suitcase was zipped, my work folders organized, and my passport was tucked neatly in the top drawer of my desk, the same drawer I'd checked at least 3 times that evening. I even set an early alarm so I'd have time for one last coffee with my mom before heading to the airport. But when I woke up the next morning, something felt off. My room was too quiet, the kind of quiet that feels staged. I walked to the desk, opened the drawer, and froze. Empty. My chest tightened. I searched everywhere under the bed, in my backpack, even in the laundry basket. That's when I saw it. A small pile of paper shreds on the carpet near the door. My passport, torn to pieces. Melissa stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame like she was posing for a magazine. In her hand, she still held the scissors, their blades glinting in the light. Her smile was calm, satisfied. "Roaches don't deserve wings," she said softly, as if she hadn't just destroyed years of my hard work in a single night. I couldn't breathe. My throat burned. My hands shook. My entire future had been reduced to scraps of paper on the floor. When I screamed for my parents, they came in, glanced at the mess, and sighed. "Jessica, stop overreacting. You can always get another passport." That was the moment I knew. They weren't going to protect me. They never had. But what none of them realized was that Melissa hadn't grounded me. She'd just lit the fire I needed. And I wasn't done fighting. Not by a long shot. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't even cry. After years of being dismissed, I finally understood that raising my voice in that house meant nothing. So instead, I swallowed the hurt and started planning. First, I swept the shredded pieces into a folder. Proof. Melissa thought she was clever, but she'd forgotten one important thing: evidence always tells the truth. I took photos from every angle, the scraps on the carpet, the scissors still in her hand, her smug reflection in the mirror behind her. My phone became my shield. Then, while Melissa gloated downstairs about how I'd never get on that plane, I called the passport agency's emergency line. I explained everything calmly, that I had a flight scheduled, that my documents had been destroyed. They fast-tracked my case, especially after my future employer in London sent a signed letter confirming my start date. My job wasn't lost. It was delayed. Next, I backed up every cruel message Melissa had ever texted me, her mocking words, her threats disguised as jokes. I compiled them into a neat little file. My parents' dismissive responses to, "Stop exaggerating," "Don't provoke her." Years of neglect stacked up like dominoes. On the outside, I pretended to crumble. I let Melissa believe she'd won. At dinner, I pushed food around my plate, silent while she smirked. My parents comforted her more than me, telling her she didn't mean it. They thought I was defeated. But every night in my room, I worked quietly. Booking a new flight, securing my paperwork, saving my evidence in multiple places, flash drive, cloud, even mailed to a trusted friend. I didn't need revenge that screamed. I wanted revenge that cut deeper truth laid bare, leaving no space for denial. Because Melissa believed she had clipped my wings. But what she didn't realize was that wings grow back. Stronger, sharper. And when the time was right, I wasn't just going to fly. I was going to soar right in front of her. 2 months later, my new passport arrived in the mail. I held it in my hands, the cover smooth and unscarred, and I felt the kind of relief that steals your breath. My employer in London had been patient, holding my position until I was ready. My flight was rescheduled. My dream was alive again. But I wasn't leaving without one final act. I asked my parents to join me for dinner the night before my new flight. Melissa was there too. Of course, she never missed a chance to gloat. She sat across from me, arms folded, smirk glued to her face. Halfway through the meal, I cleared my throat. "Before I leave, tomorrow," I said, "there's something you should all see." I pulled out my phone, connected it to the TV in the living room, and pressed play. The first image filled the screen, A photo of my shredded passport scattered across my carpet. Then another Melissa's hand clutching the scissors, her grin reflected in the mirror. The next slide? Screenshots of her texts mocking me. Good luck flying without a passport, loser. Roaches don't deserve wings. The room went dead silent. My father's fork clattered onto his plate. My mother blinked rapidly, her face pale. Melissa shot up from her chair, sputtering. She's lying! She staged this! I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I simply swiped to the last photo, the government letter confirming my expedited passport replacement, alongside the email from my London employer verifying my start date. I leave tomorrow, I said quietly, and this time nothing is stopping me. Melissa's face twisted in rage. She shouted, she cried, she demanded that our parents defend her, but they sat frozen, shame written across their faces. They couldn't excuse her anymore. The evidence was too sharp, too undeniable. I stood, picking up my coat. You tried to cage me, Melissa, I said, meeting her eyes one last time. But all you did was remind me why I had to leave. And with that, I walked out. The next morning, I boarded my flight. Alone, free. And as the plane lifted into the clouds, I looked out the window and smiled. Melissa thought she'd clipped my wings. But the truth was, she'd just made them stronger. It's been 6 months since that night, and my life feels like it belongs to someone new. I settled into London faster than I expected. My coworkers welcomed me with open arms, and for the first time, my hard work wasn't dismissed as overreacting or too much. It was valued. Every project I completed, every idea I contributed, reminded me that I wasn't a failure. I had just been trapped in a house where success was never meant for me. Melissa hasn't changed. She sent bitter messages through family, demanding apologies I'll never give. My parents try to smooth things over, but I don't answer their calls as often anymore. I learned something in that house that I'll never forget. Blood ties don't guarantee loyalty. Some people will cheer for your downfall louder than they ever clap for your success. But here, across the ocean, I've built something better. I walk through streets lined with history, meet people who see me for who I am, and fall asleep each night knowing I carved this future with my own 2 hands. The scars Melissa left aren't invisible. Every time I open my passport, I remember the shredded pieces on my carpet. But instead of pain, I feel power, because she tried to clip my wings. And yet, here I am, flying higher than she ever imagined. She called me a roach, but I learned something important. Roaches survive anything. And I didn't just survive, I soared.